The Molten Pyres of the Camels, Berkeley and Jefferson County, Virginia, summer 1861. How and why did this new mysterious Colonel Thomas Jackson destroy 42 locomotives and much more, all owned by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad that summer of 1861? Call it a tactic that deprived approaching Union armies of assets. You can also say Jackson did one thing that may well have decided a Confederate victory at Manassas Bull Run. Just the same, the Confederates' gigantic grab of so many B&O locomotives, coal cars, equipment, the firing of buildings, and the destruction of so many bridges spanning the Potomac made the B&O system and Maryland forever blue and forever Union. Why did Jackson do it? He was ordered to. Robert E. Lee, on June 1st, 1861, wrote Jackson's superior, General Joseph Johnston, "Destroy everything that cannot be removed, deprive them, the Federal armies, of the use of the railroad, take the field, and endeavor to arrest their advance up the valley." So, General Johnston and then Colonel Jackson did what Lee ordered. As a result, John W. Garrett, president of the B&O, reported to his shareholders, "On May 28, 1861, general possession was taken by the Confederate forces of more than 100 miles of the main stem, embroiling chiefly the region between Point of Rocks and Cumberland." What does such destruction look like? This task of destroying dozens of 50-ton locomotives was a sight one could never forget. David Hunter Strother, an artist, saw that ghastly scene about 20 miles from Harper's Ferry at Martinsburg, Virginia, June 20, 1861. "We heard a strange singing and screaming in the air which resembled the notes of a gigantic aeolian. These sounds grew more distinct and definite as we advanced, and still nearer the town we perceived immense columns of black smoke rolling up between us and the setting sun and tinging the whole landscape with a coppery hue. A scene was suddenly presented to us which much more resembled a dream from Dante's Inferno than an exhibition of real life. Jackson's brigade was performing a grand auto-da-fe upon the rolling stock of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. On the open space in front of the workshop stood, ranged upon the tracks, between 40 and 50 locomotives, roasting amidst the flames of 1,000 cords of wood, distributed, refreshed, and stirred up continually by a brigade of Confederates. Strother wrote again the following day, June 21st, 1861. "The dawn of morning on the railroad. We could see the wilted and discolored bodies of the locomotives lying amidst the smoke and ashes of their funeral pyres." This is the first of several short videos telling the story. First, how Colonel Jackson entrapped the B&O system. Next, how, when, and where his men destroyed bridges. Third, how 42 locomotives, tenders, 386 coal hoppers, and gondola cars were all fashioned into self-destructive, molten, long-burning coal fires. Fourth, how after the Battle of Manassas Bull Run, Jackson and his men returned to the eastern panhandle, once again rid of Union soldiers, to tear up some 36 miles of double track employing ingenious, almost artistic methods. The fifth video is the remarkable story of how Jackson and a team of men and horses enabled and girded themselves to successfully transport 18 full-size locomotives without benefit of rail over some 38 miles of crumbling macadam to Strasburg, Virginia. An engineering marvel credited to one Captain Thomas R. Sharp, the previous master of transportation to the Winchester and Potomac Railroad. Part 1 of our story: Jackson entraps B&O trains, May 1861. Union armies began amassing for hundreds of miles east to west all along the north side of the Potomac River and the Baltimore and Ohio line. The armies would nearly gain control of the B&O road except for a stretch in the eastern panhandle where Colonel Jackson and his thousands of new troops were active. A vote was coming on May 23rd that would reveal the political sentiment of Virginians statewide towards a convention's vote in April to secede. If the western counties, tied to Baltimore so vitally by the B&O, were to proceed with an effort to form its own non-seceding state, then choking off the B&O pipeline to them would become a priority for the Confederacy. Jackson and General Johnston would be the point men. Early May 1861 witnessed a wily game of chess between Jackson and his Union counterparts. A precarious détente of sorts had been in place whereby Jackson was on orders to not interfere with B&O traffic. However irksome was the constant sight and night-long rumbling of coal cars spiriting coal east to the harbors in Baltimore to be used to interdict Confederate shipping. But Jackson saw he could use his mere 44 miles of the 500-plus mile railroad to bring the whole B&O main stem to a screeching halt. That would mean no troops moving east or west, as Western Virginia was struggling to become a separate state, and no more coal cars reaching Baltimore and Union ships. Then, Union General Benjamin Franklin Butler provoked Confederate leaders by making his own first chess move. Between May 5th and May 13th, Butler assured use of the B&O road by Union forces not only between Baltimore and Washington, D.C., but the main stem stretching west all the way to Jackson's area of control. Beginning at Point of Rocks, Maryland, just 12 miles shy of Jackson's headquarters at Harper's Ferry. Butler conducted his side of this chess game from the key crossroads at the Relay House 9 miles from Baltimore. Like every checkmate in this game of wits between Jackson, the president of the Baltimore and Ohio, and generals like Butler, Jackson's checkmate was snuck into fatal position one move at a time. Jackson's greatest asset in making his surprise, bloodless attack was the deluded wish and hope among the gentleman class and the powerful that it wasn't quite yet time for the relentless, cruel hammer blows of war to fall. Jackson brought them war. Much was at stake in terms of real assets and the conduct of this fledgling war between brothers. This so-called chess game would come to an end soon. Jackson, on the orders of Johnston and Lee, would paralyze the B&O for 10 months using, at first, only cunning and nary spilling a drop of blood or firing a single minie-ball. An estimated 56 locomotives, many weighing 50 tons, their tenders, 386 cars, 26 bridges, invaluable equipment, and 36.5 miles of double track would be torn up or removed in the service of the Confederacy, the aggrieved courtesy of the B&O. Now, the lead-up. The pre-war boom times for the B&O and Winchester Potomac. The Baltimore and Ohio Railroad held on to its business despite gathering storm clouds of war and rival railroads by indemnifying its customers against any losses from political or military causes. Business that May of 1861 was booming as demand for coal eastbound soared and the United States government began utilizing the railroad. In the 1830s, the Winchester Potomac branch connected Winchester to the B&O at Harper's Ferry, vastly enriching Jefferson County's wheat farmers who could load flour at interim stops, a crop abundantly available because the county topped all other Virginia counties year after year in total wheat production. County and valley found an eager, well-paying market in Europe. But the Winchester Potomac line on the eve of the Civil War could only bear the loads of smaller, older locomotives and relied on flat rails instead of the more common T-rail. Now let the chess game begin. Still in command of his new mixed bag of hard-drilling volunteers at Harper's Ferry, Colonel Jackson stood by the Virginia governor's orders that the road not be used to prejudice Virginia, up to when Butler made his first move on Sunday, May 5th. Butler began controlling the B&O line from the Relay House south of Baltimore. Jackson counter-moved by seizing assets on an eastbound military train after Butler ordered searches and seizures on B&O trains and of their passengers. On Thursday, May 9th, Jackson moved in kind at Harper's Ferry and acquisitioned 5 carloads of beeves and 1 of horses. He sent the assets south and bought for himself 2 horses, one his calm and steady war horse, first named Fancy and later Little Sorrel. 4 days later, on Monday, May 13, 1861, Butler extended his control all the way from the Relay House 9 miles from Baltimore to Jackson's stronghold at Harper's Ferry. John Imbeden remembered in his article for the Century, "By Jackson's orders, I took possession of the bridge across the Potomac at Point of Rocks, 12 miles below Harper's Ferry, and fortified the Virginia end of the bridge, as we expected a visit any night from General B.F. Butler, who was at the Relay House on the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. It was my habit to keep awake all night to be ready for emergencies and to sleep in the daytime making daily reports night and morning to Jackson. One Sunday afternoon, a little over a week after we occupied this post, I was aroused from my nap by one of my men, who said there were 2 men in blue uniforms, we had not yet adopted the gray, riding about our camp, and looking so closely at everything that he believed they were spies. I went out to see who they were and found Jackson and one of his staff. As I approached them, he put his finger on his lips and shook his head as a signal for silence. In a low tone he preferred it should not be known he had come there. He approved of all I had done and soon galloped away, and afterwards I suspected that the visit was simply to familiarize himself with the line of the canal and railroad from Point of Rocks to Harper's Ferry, preparatory to a sharp bit of strategy which he had been practiced for a few days. On Wednesday, May 15, Colonel Jackson figuratively moved his queen into range of the B&O's king. He had in mind the 44 miles of double track that ran between Point of Rocks, which again was 12 miles below Harper's Ferry on the opposite side of the river in Maryland, and Cherry Run, Virginia, 32 miles to Harper's Ferry's west. That day, Jackson telegraphed Garrett at the B&O headquarters complaining, "The noise of your trains is intolerable, and my men find their repose disturbed by them each night. You will have to work out some other method of operating them." Jackson requested a change of schedule that would pass all eastbound trains by Harper's Ferry between 11 and 1 o'clock in the daytime, and Mr. Garrett complied, and thereafter, for several days, we heard the constant roar of passing trains for an hour and an hour after noon. But since the empties were sent up the road at night, Jackson again complained that the nuisance was as great as ever, and as the road had 2 tracks, said he must insist that the westbound trains should pass during the same 2 hours as those going east. Well, Mr. Garrett promptly complied, and we had then for 2 hours every day the liveliest railroad in America. On Wednesday, May 22nd, Jackson's order to Imboden: from Point of Rocks, permit all westbound trains, deny all eastbound trains, and at noon the next day, close the line. Thursday, May 23rd, Jackson's order to Kenton Harper, commanding the 5th Virginia Infantry west of Martinsburg: permit all eastbound trains, deny all westbound trains, close the line at noon the 23rd, like Imboden. Jackson said, "Checkmate," at noon that day, capturing inside the trap 56 locomotives and more than 300 cars.